Talent is important, but it's the entry fee. A great story is important, but it's the entry fee. To answer your question, why do most speakers starve? And most speakers starve is because they don't have a business behind the message.
Why are a lot of speakers starving and burning out at about the 2-year mark? Tell me the difference between you with longevity and you're rocking and rolling, right, in the industry versus someone who has a great message. They're a great person, but they're just not making it.
Right. The parallel that I draw is probably the best actor or actress. I guess we'll call them all actors now because we're not going to be sexist. The best in the world is probably waiting tables somewhere in New York because the opportunity hasn't come along. They haven't been visible enough. They haven't been right. Talent is important, but it's the entry fee. A great story is important, but it's the entry fee. To answer your question, why do most speakers starve? And most speakers starve is because they don't have a business behind the message and they think the phone's going to ring. We said this 30 years ago, right? If you build a better mousetrap, the world will beat a path to your door. They don't anymore. Now you got a warehouse full of mousetraps and 10,000 other people doing the same thing. So the key for us, and there was a seminal moment in my business where we could have fallen victim to that as well, was I had a colleague, Dave Horshauger, who's a Hall of Fame speaker on trust, is a great friend. 15 years ago, we were at an NSA conference, and I was talking about my business, and he said to me, "You don't have a business." And I said, "What are you talking about? This is like my best year ever. My new book had come out." And he says, "No, no, you don't have a business. You have gigs." And I said, "What's the difference?" He said, "How many? Let me ask you a question." He goes, How much money are you going to make next year? How much are you going to make next year?" I said, "I have no idea." I said, "Of course you don't. How would you know? You have no processes. How are you finding contacts and turning them into leads and leads into prospects and prospects into paying customers?" He says, "I know speakers that made 7 figures who couldn't pay their mortgage 2 years later because the phone stopped ringing." And so it was a profound moment. I went back and had a conversation with my wife. I didn't sleep. And we put processes in place. We have a CRM, or customer relationship management. You can do SpeakerFlow or Infusionsoft, which we call Confusionsoft, but a way of tracking leads. So every day we find meetings, we find organizations, conferences, and we look at who were their speakers last year, when's their conference this year, what city, what's the date, and who's the person in charge. And we put it into our CRM. And if they have their conference coming up in 2 months, we're not going to pitch them because they already have their speakers. Then we put a task that sets a reminder 2 months after their conference because we know that's when they're going to start looking at next year. We send them a pitch letter. And I want to introduce David Avern. He's one of the best customer experience, blah, blah, blah. If you want to skip the rest of this letter, just click on this link and watch his preview video. You'll see in 3 minutes why, blah, blah, blah. And then we put a task to follow up again in 2 weeks if they haven't responded. If they do respond, then we do a video email. I send them a copy of my book. I mean, this is a business. And the other part is we don't automate anything ever, ever, ever. You can be very efficient and send out 100,000, and then you wonder what to do the next day because you got no responses. We tailor every one. Is it hard? Sure. Does it take time? Yeah. And when you look at what we get paid, it's worth every minute of it. But it's a business behind it. Because imagine if you had any other kind of business, what would you do? You'd do the same thing, wouldn't you? You do marketing. You say, who's my core market? What do they watch? What do they read? Where do they recreate and congregate? I know it's a long answer to your question, but the question is, what do we do that's different that causes longevity is we have a business behind the speaking.